5 o'clock here, 6 o'clock there.
Entire
Welcome to the March 15th regular meeting of the Board of Education. I'm Gary Yitzen. Order. Call roll.
Here.
Mr. O'Brien.
Here.
Here. Ask Miss Appleton. Open the meeting with a prayer and Mr. Pledge. Feel free to join us.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. We thank you for the beautiful sunshine and the warm world. Pray, Lord, that you will be with the refugees. I just thank you, Lord, for our students. Pray, Lord, that you'll be able to let them refresh and relax and enjoy this great new year as they finish out. Pray that you continue to be forward. Help us to make it in the right interest of our students. Be with each one of us individually, with us collectively, Lord, as we up the yes.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time in the meeting that we recognize those of you in the audience who would like to speak to the board. Oh, you got to stand right.
I have to stand.
Oh, no, you don't.
I put my back to people. My name is Jeremy West, and I came here today from Texas. Full disclosure, my wife and Mr. Young are cousins, and so I had a conversation with him several weeks ago. Kind of led to today's events. Came here, I coach high school in Texas. I've long felt, in Texas, we're kind of proud of our high school football. I live in the area, particularly in the big country north of Abilene, where we have some mascots, and I've always wondered, in my particular area, we have schools that are the Yellowhammers, Blizzards, Roughnecks, Plowboys, a lot of interesting mascots. And the last district I was at is Hamlin, Texas, and our mascot was the Pied Pipers. And so one of the things I've always wondered, I just wanted to be a fly on the wall. All those time frames we're talking about were probably the 1920s and 30s. And I just wanted to hear what the conversation led to that led us to be the Pied Pipers. Going to represent our town and our school, our kids. And, it's a long time ago for you young guys, 100 years ago. And so I always thought about that. And, New Braunfels, Texas, unicorns, Huttos, the hippos. I thought, man, I wonder what transpired. What were the pros and the cons for this mascot or that mascot? And why did we land on that? Why did we land on Pied Pipers for Hamlin, Texas? So I've always wondered that. It occurred to me later in my life that mascot for Hobbs High School is the Eagles. And I know how that conversation took place because both of my grandparents were there. It also dawned on me that I may be the only person alive that knows that story. So the reason I'm here today is to tell you guys that story because I don't feel like it should die with me in North Texas. I would like for some people in Hobbs that might have some interest in that to know. And so my grandparents were here in the late 20s. You guys know the history of this town. It was literally a boom town. That's how this place came to be. They discovered oil, and overnight, my grandparents spoke of, went from a town of nothing to literally thousands of people overnight. And so they were here when that happened. The school started the first year, I think, that they had an official Hobbs schools was 1930. First graduating class was in 31. My grandfather was coaching here. He had a guy that helped him, usually another male teacher. Particular year it was a math teacher. I believe the guy's name was Walker. Look that up. But so my grandfather, and in order to tell you this, I have to tell you a little bit about my family history. My grandmother had come from East Texas, outside of Clarksville. She went to college in Denton, Texas. Now the University of North Texas at the time was North Texas State Teachers College. Okay. She went on to Stephenville, Texas. The guy that was at Stephenville became the superintendent of Hobbs from Stephenville, Texas. He came to Hobbs when the school opened. And so he brought 2 or 3 of those young ladies with him that had worked for him in Stephenville, and they came to Hobbs, New Mexico. My granddad grew up in North Central Texas, had gone in the oil fields of West Texas, ended up in college at McMurray University in Abilene, Texas, also had a connection to Hobbs. And so he came out here to coach. My grandfather was the first coach in Hobbs, New Mexico. I'm the baby of the baby on my dad's side. My granddad was born in 1903. My dad wasn't born until my grandfather was in his 40s. My dad was in his 30s before I was born. So I'm 47. My grandfather was born in 03. He was coaching in Hobbs in the late 20s. So the story goes, they started athletic programs. When all those kids got here and those people showed up, my granddad said literally there wasn't any new kids. Everybody in Hobbs, New Mexico was a new kid that year. Like, that's the way it happened. And so they started the athletic programs. My grandfather and this other coach, Walker, both had a connection to McMurray University. You guys remember in the good old days, their mascot were the Indians. All these teachers, all 11 of them, lived in a teacherage here in Hobbs that year. And so they were all in it. My grandparents were not married at this time. They lived in this teacherage. Okay. And my granddad and Coach Walker said, it would be the Hobbs Indians. Right? It's a good name. New Mexico would be the Hobbs Indians. And so my grandmother, as I mentioned, had gone to North Texas State Teachers College, later became the University of North Texas, whose mascot was the Eagles. And so the ladies in that room said, now, wait a minute, we want to say in this also. And so that night in that teacherage here in Hobbs, that first year, those ladies outvoted my granddad and Coach Walker to the mascot of Hobbs High School. So that's the reason that the Hobbs Eagles today are the Hobbs Eagles, because that happened that night in that teacherage. They outvoted my granddad. And so that's the way that story happened. And it's not really that cool of a story, but that is the story, and that's how it happened. And then, so I have a lot of history here. My father was actually born here. And I brought some things to leave with Mr. Young and for you guys to look at. There's a picture of the first Hobbs High School football team. There's a picture of the school. There's a picture of that teacherage. The first commencement invitation is there from the first graduating class. Hobbs High School was 1931. So that stuff is there. And again, I brought that for you guys. Like, that belongs here. It doesn't belong with me in Texas in my closet, which is where it's been my whole adult life. And so I appreciate Mr. Strickland. I appreciate the board members and you guys allowing me to say my piece. And thanks to Mr. Young and Doug and I had that conversation. And so that's how that all got started. And so I made this trek out here this week to come tell you guys that story. And I hope you appreciate the history of this place. And I'm glad to see all these young people. I tell you, my grandparents would be proud that we can still open a board meeting with a prayer. That would have meant a lot to them. They got married in this place. They met in this place. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. West, I appreciate you coming down, appreciate you making the trip and coming to God's country. Appreciate you being in Hobbs. But on behalf of Hobbs Schools and our Hobbs Board of Education, appreciate you sharing that history with us. And as a dad of a little girl, I'm going to tell you, it's pretty cool to know that women had power. So on behalf of that, I want to send you back home with a little memento. So a little Hobbs Eagle pin that represents a little bit about who we are. So we appreciate you bringing that and honoring the time-honored tradition of gold and black. And we've said here for a couple of years that gold is the gold standard for a reason. So we appreciate you sharing that history with us.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Very cool.
It's tough to beat. Let's just go. Anybody else that would like to speak to the board tonight? Board members have comments?
Follow that.
Well, if everybody's had an opportunity to review tonight's agenda and there are no additions, then I would entertain a motion to flip the agenda.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Starting the minutes of the regular meeting, February 15th. Any revisions?
Make a motion that we accept the minutes of the regular board meeting of February 15th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ready for presentation?
Yes, sir. Is the board comfortable coming down, Mr. President, or do you want to stay where you are? So we have several presentations tonight, but we're going to start with the spelling bee winners from our Lee County Spelling Bee. We're a little late getting them their awards, but better late than never, I think is how the saying goes. So I just want you to know that everyone tonight, this is how our bee ended, with a champion and 3 first place, second place, third place. But every one of these were able to compete in the state virtual spelling bee. So we hadn't done that before. I'm sure that was a deal. But we kept close tabs on everyone because we had papers to fill out. And so the students are in a room with their computer and a monitor, and they are, I'm assuming, typing in words that they're being given. So they also have to, the students themselves had to sign at the end that they had no help. And then the proctor also had to sign, and all of that had to go in. So I'm sorry to say we don't have a state winner, but we still have some great spellers, and we're going to recognize them tonight. Okay. All right. So let me start with our third alternative from Veritas Academy, 7th grader, Ashlyn Sedal.
Come on down, buddy.
Yeah, you can go around this way. Just cut across. You're good.
You just shoot across there and we'll go that way.
Good job.
Great job. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
We're gonna take a picture.
Yeah, turn them out, okay.
Our second alternative from Heiser Middle School, 8th grade, Rogelio Gonzalez.
Good job. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Our first alternate from Stone Elementary, 5th grader, Tyson Hoover. All right, we will get that to him. And our champion for the Lee County Spelling Bee, Houston Middle School, 8th grader, Alina Melendez. Good job, man.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. We're here, guys. That's not the board. Look up here.
You.
Spell smile. Just kidding. Good picture. We don't want to wear you out, but if you want to stay, we're now, Dr. Dean will come down and she's going to recognize the Science Olympiad winners.
Mr. President, members of the board, so tonight we're presenting Science Olympiad, and we did compete at the state tournament this year. We sent 4 teams, Houston, Heiser, freshman school, and the high school. We, because of COVID, did things a little differently this year. We didn't get to do all of our competition up at New Mexico Tech. So we actually in Hobbs hosted part of the state tournament. So we used our mezzanine and brought all of our kids over and tested. Downstairs was home base and upstairs was testing. We had kids going all over the place for the entire day. And then we did all of our written events that way because we still had to use the computers. And then the next morning, we turned around at 5 in the morning and headed to Socorro. You go do all of our build events to turn around and come home like that night. So they split our state tournament this year, and next year we'll be back to normal. But it was awesome to actually bring home some of our state champions. So we have 3 events that took first place at the state tournament. 2 of them actually took first last year. So they defended their state championship. So that's kind of awesome. So I would like to call them down and have Mr. Wilson help me do the presentation. So last year we won anatomy and physiology for B division. And so defended that again this year. So first up, Lucy Sloan. That way.
Go down the line. Thank you.
And then Aishana Sarakanti. And then our second event was bioprocessing lab. And so Aishana was part of that same group. And then Anaya Cervantes. Okay. Then also first place from last year in food science. So Aishana Saraconte and Lucy Slime again.
Yes, you have to go down the line again. Good job.
What was the toughest question on food science?
Okay.
Right in the middle.
Let your light shine.
Here.
All right, Athletic Director Brenda Wilson will take
Mr.
over.
Strickland and Mr. President, members of the board, this is the best part about the job is getting to recognize state champions. So first of all, I want to recognize the coaches because they sure put in a lot of work. Thomas helped start the girls wrestling program here. We've been wrestling for 22 years. Is this the 4th year for girls? Or what you know?
Recognized just for.
3rd. I think maybe the first year was an exhibition, maybe.
Yes, ma'am.
So Coach Rotuno, you'll stand up. The second Coach Rotuno. Come on down. This young lady, there's been no other wrestler at Hobbs High School like this young lady. She's full of passion and drive and heart and just about everything that you want in an athlete. She's beautiful, she's smart, she's talented, she's athletic. She went 49-11 her 3 years as a Hobbs wrestler. And this year in New Mexico, she went 28-0. She's just amazing. Every opponent she faced, she's also a soccer player too, so she's a dual sport athlete. state champion. We just want to recognize you. You're historic. You're in the trophy cases now. I mean, you've made it. You're a female, you're an African-American female, and you're our first wrestler, state champion in the female division. So I just love this kiddo and I'm so proud of you. So let's give her a big hand. Congrats. I didn't tell you the division, 152-pound division. That's her state championship division. Sorry about that.
Congratulations. All right, so what's the plan for next year?
Oh,
Congratulations.
Good job. Good job.
congratulations. Thank you, guys.
Now you can.
We're gonna grab a seat for Heiser's presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So while this is a recognition as well, Mr. President, members of the board, but it's also a presentation about this recognition. So they're going to explain what they have done and the award they have won. And Mr. Gonzalez is here to introduce the group. It's a class from Heiser and tell us more about it.
Yes, President Needs and members of the board. Great honor. I'm actually going to introduce Mr. Pedal as one of our 7th grade science teachers, part of our after school program. Introduce our student.
Good evening, President and members of the board. Good evening, everyone. So the competition that we joined is called Samsung Software Tomorrow. So basically, it's about solving a community problem using STEM. So I can talk more about this, but I will definitely. So it's my honor to introduce them to everyone. So let me start with, I know your name. Let me start with Cindy Taylor, Enrico Diarzo, Joshua Gonzalez, Addison Dudley, Aileen Gonzalez Salazar, Andrea Estrada, Nathan Pennington, Say Hidalgo, Mario Padilla, Logan Foster, and Dynastar.
A pretty good job there.
That's a great job. That's a great job.
Guys, if y'all want to line up right there. Here. Go this way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. Thank you, Mr. Strickland.
Hi, my name's Aileen Gonzalez. I'm in 7th grade and I'm part of Heiser's after school coding program.
Hello, I'm Mario Padilla. I'm in 8th grade and I'm also part of the after school.
I'm going to be introducing you. We meet every Thursday. Right now, we are creating an app that is meant to help with the message. But what is Learn Plus? From its name, Learn, you get the impression that it is an educational app. Notice the A is capitalized because it stands for abuse. So it is a reporting app disguised as an educational app that is meant to help minors safely and anonymously for domestic abuse.
So why is our target audience children? Well, our research has shown between the ages of 5 and 15, many children don't report domestic violence cases. It's around 16 where they have the ability to get away, and they'd rather just wait till then. So why should you use Learn Plus? Some of you might be thinking, well, why not call the police? Well, there are certain features in our app that we'll get more into later that makes it more discreet and safe for children to report cases like this.
Aileen and Mario. Hi, I'm Andrea Estrada. I'm in 7th grade. I'm part of the after school program.
I'm Haneli Gallarza. I'm in the 8th grade and I'm also. So initially with our project, we had to find a topic of what we were going to make our app about. And so we looked around our community hogs, see what was going on. And with that, we found abuse and we found a lot of it going on. And so we had to do an investigation about like how it works, like what are the victims doing, like just all of that type of stuff. And so we investigated and we um interviewed our school social worker, Miss Ramirez, and she told us that she gets around 5 cases weekly of people reporting abuse. And so we thought that was really heartbreaking and we just wanted to find a way to make it easier and help them.
After our social worker, we went to go interview the police officers. We asked them questions about how many cases they got yearly and what were the ages of the minors or the victims reporting to the police officer. They answered with they had around 400 cases yearly and the ages were around 9 to 15. In addition, they had special trained nurses that helped with the children that wouldn't talk about what was going on in their home, what type of abuse they were going under. So the special trained nurses, they played a game with the children, with the doll, saying if the doll was a bad person, what would you do? Or saying if the doll did this, what would you do?
Thank you very much, Henley and Andrea. I'm Addison Dudley. I'm in 7th grade and I'm also part of the school coding program.
I'm Nathan Pennington. I'm in 7th grade.
So me and Nathan are going to explain our app's features and how they work.
So the first of our features is the call and text option. So you can press either of the buttons and they will allow you to call or text the authorities if needed.
So for potential domestic violence victims to receive the help that they need, they can call the authorities if they are in immediate danger, or they can text the authorities if they have more time on their hands, or they would just prefer to text the authorities.
Then we have location. So when you first open the app will send you a notification whether or not you would like the authorities to access you.
So for the authorities to be able to reach the potential domestic violence victims and give them the help that they are asking for, they will need to enable their location.
Next we have translate. Once the user presses the star, it'll be sent to the translate screen where they can press the English button where a drop-down menu of around 100 different languages. Choose the one you are most comfortable with. Type what you want to be translated in the white box. Press the translate button in the white box.
We understand that not all potential domestic violence victims are going to be the same. This includes the languages they speak, and we've observed, especially in our community, Haas, that there are many different people who speak many. And so, from the around 100 different languages you can choose from, we hope to make this as inclusive as possible.
Next, we have the voice recording. So once you press start recording, your device will record any audio it picks up. Then you can play your recording to see what you do.
We understand that gathering evidence is a really big struggle for potential domestic violence victims. So providing them with the voice recording will give them all that they need to be able to gather evidence to support their own argument.
And then we have checklists. So the user will click the button where it'll be sent to a screen where there will be several yes or no questions. They can choose their answer with lights. They can press the done button when they're finished.
In order to assess the danger level and gather more information on the situation of the potential domestic violence, the checklist feature was created.
So currently, our entire app and all of these features are a work in progress, but we're getting. So our QR code feature, we hope to post around schools so students can.
We realize it is a very big hassle and it is a very slow process to open up the App Store, search the app name, and download it on its own. So using QR codes should make this as easy as a process and as accessible as we can.
Then we have our most significant feature, our math problem feature. So the user will have a hide button. Once they click, they will be sent to a math game, 5 different levels with practice.
As mentioned before by Nathan, this is one of our most significant features, and it is what sets us apart from any other method of reporting. So the math problem feature hides the true intentions of the potential domestic violence victim who is using the app from the abuser, further ensures their safety.
Hi, I'm Joshua Torres. I'm in 7th grade and I'm part of the after school coding program.
Hi, I'm Sydney Taylor. I'm in 7th grade. I'm part of the after school coding program.
First of all, we were very excited to hear that we had won the first round of the competition and that we would be representing New Mexico in the nationals. We were very proud of ourselves and we celebrated with this for a while, but then we had to start getting ready for the second round of the competition. In the second round of the competition, we had to create a video that would represent our app, show our features, and show how it would be able to help our community. So we started to write a script. We all helped Mr. Prowlis to write a script and we all started memorizing it and then we started filming. The first place we went to while filming was the call and dispatch center here in Hobbs, where they call and answer and forward 911 calls and messages.
Next place we went to was the United Way, where they give resources to people who have escaped domestic violence situations. After that, we went to the Phoenix House, where they give out medical exams and clothing to people who have either escaped domestic violence situations or in the process of. And all three of the places we visited told us that our app will help their process and it'll make everything a lot more simple for the victims.
Phoenix House and United Way have both committed to us and they will be using our app to help domestic violence victims get out of their situations.
After that, we went back to our school where we finished filming, talking about why and how we are creating our app.
As stated before by Nathan, our app is still a work in progress and we are getting ready to release it. And we are also waiting to see if we made it to the third round of the competition. We are not just working on our app to win this competition. We are working on our app to help our community. Your time.
Show the video that.
Lives have changed dramatically due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the increase of family isolation, unemployment, and economic stress, and even domestic violence cases.
We dug deep by looking for scientific publications that support the issues, and we discovered a number of scientific journals. We also conducted preliminary interviews with the social worker, our school resource officer, and options, and discovered a significant increase in domestic violence since the beginning of the pandemic COVID-19.
After gathering sufficient data and proof, we determined that the issue is a disconnect between domestic abuse victims and organizations who can assist them. Aside from the communication that appears to be a concern, there is also a problem in reporting the abuser safely due to family isolation. Then we came up with a reporting and educational app called Learn Plus. Learn Plus is an online resource meant to assist and support children with academics at home, school, and other locations. You may explore, create, and learn using Learn Plus to improve your writing, reading, mathematics, and scientific skills. We began by incorporating all of our app's safety features, such as locations, voice recording, phone and chat buttons, using math puzzles, and button for safely changing screens. After that, we go on to lay out app icons and prototype. As soon as you open the app, it will ask you to enable location services. Then, you can use it to practice your mathematical skills. Second, and as soon as you think it is safe to call for assistance, press this button, which will take you to a chat or call with the authorities. However, if you believe you can communicate effectively in Spanish, we can translate the language for you. This app also includes a voice recording feature in case you need to record information to the police.
The schools, including the teachers, would primarily assist us in raising awareness and disseminating information about the apps. We spoke at school assemblies to raise awareness and discuss the app with students.
We would distribute this app to our partners and to the people that we work with, including the Hobbs schools, to the Lovington schools. United Way does serve all of Lee County, and so we would definitely push that information on our website, on our social media outlets.
Domestic violence must be stopped.
It has been passed down from generation to generation.
If we do not care for our children,
our community and nation will fall to pieces.
This app does more than just fight for justice.
It also saves lives.
This is our way of contributing to the development of a healthy community.
And it begins with us.
The children.
Good job and good presentation.
Presentation.
That's it for presentations. Do you want to have a break? So
Does anybody
parents and
need a
kids
break,
could
or-
leave.
I know the kids probably don't want to stick around, so feel free to get up and go home if you want.
Thank you, parents, for bringing your children.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, it's neat.
I
don't know anything about that.
So what's round 3?
Like, it's gonna be tomorrow.
No, but what
The
does?
video.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha. I hope they.
They did good.
That's amazing. It is very amazing. Because most of us probably wouldn't know the first thing about creating an app in the first place.
Okay. Mr. President, members of the board, bring 2 reports for your information tonight. The first one is parent-teacher conference numbers. These are from this year. You can see we have the fall, the September 15th Parent Conference Day, and the February 2nd Parent Conference Day. And our numbers really are pretty typical for our for our parent conference turnouts. Overall, I looked back on the year before, and overall, we're about 5% higher on both than we were the previous year. So again, there were many options. You could come in person, you could Zoom, you could do a phone call. So we try to offer lots of opportunities for parents to come and visit with teachers.
Do you think it's because we do have the Zoom and the phone calls that it has increased? It's not just an in-person thing?
I think variety is always helpful.
Okay.
Some parents work longer hours and can't get off, even though we're trying to accommodate that with our 11 to 6. That day, the teachers come 11 to 6. And so we do try to accommodate that, but I just think there are some who cannot, and we want to talk to as many as possible.
Appreciate the report.
Good, thank you. Okay. Yes, sir, Mr. President, members of the board. The second one is kindergarten roundup. And since we've been doing pre-K, we've started adding in the last year or so, the pre-K enrollment roundup at the same time. We do those at the same time. You can see what we're looking at now is pending means we're still waiting on some paperwork to be completed. Maybe it's a shot record, maybe it's something else. But those they'll be coming. They just need to complete something before they're processed. So right now with these numbers for kindergarten, we are, as of March, looking at 363 between the completed and pending, and for pre-K 97. Those numbers, we continue. We do a week that we push it. That's where you see the banner across the busy intersection, the paper, a call out, but we leave it open because we want to get in as many as we can. And typically we're about 200 off normally from pre-K, from the roundup to the actual enrollment. We'll pick up about 200 more kids. So we're a little down this year as of the numbers last year. At this time last year, we were at 423, and this kindergarten group ended up being 736. So it's just,
I had a note to my question here and you answered it.
okay. So this could be a little smaller class. Could be.
Mr. President, I'll add to that. The outreach efforts that go into kindergarten roundup, we're always looking for additional ideas. So not to say that we look over under every stone or turn over every leaf, but if there are additional ideas in terms of outreach, we want to try and attempt to do that. And so while you see the banner, social media is a huge push for us. I will say nationwide, this kindergarten class coming in 22, nationwide birth rates were down 5 years ago. We anticipate a little dip in that kinder number through our master planners. We've been able to glean that information, so we're expecting that. But I had a conversation with a parent just yesterday who has been homeschooling their children, who will have a kindergartner next year, and has said, we're coming back. I've already paid for the materials, so I'm finishing the semester. But in August, you'll get from all 3 of my kids. So that I anticipate that to repeat itself across our community as we continue to move forward. Each and every day, quite honestly.
Get back to normal.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you. Any questions?
No.
Thank you.
So, Mr. President, members of the board, you have in front of you the Reports for human resources for certified employment, classified employment, certified resignations, and classified resignations. We did have 2 new hires that started since our last board meeting. We're closing in on finalizing those teaching positions at CTEC. You see there, we did hire a plumber for that. We're excited that at this point in time, we also have 9 letters of intent that have been sent out and accepted for next year. So there's 9 positions that have been filled for next year. So we're excited about that. We continue to search and attend job fairs and reach out to prospective candidates. Classified employment, we'll say there's 15 new hires for classified positions. And then on classified resignations, we did have 10 classified resignations since our last meeting. Some of those will take effect immediately. Some of those are for the end of the year. So any questions on that portion? Okay. And then next we have renewal of coordinators and directors. You see those 6 names there for coordinators and directors. And then on the next page, you have the 30 names of principals and assistant principals for Hobbs Municipal Schools. Happy to report that all are returning.
All looking for their names.
Of course, there are some on here that I've heard that are retiring.
They are, yes, but it's always good to give them that opportunity to rethink it.
We would take you if you decide to stay.
Exactly, yes.
Thank you. Right, we're ready to move on to data.
I'm sorry, not so much the question from Mr. Young, but with the legislators changing the way we can rehire retired teachers, did that make it and pass it statewide to the legislature?
Kind of, sort of.
I'm trying to keep up on it and read, and I just failed to ask Jean, you know what I mean, if that was able to go through that way. They can only have to sit out 90 days, is that correct?
Right, but unfortunately, they're not doing it on the date of the last paycheck. They're doing it as of June 30th. So the 90 days begins July 1.
Which doesn't help us.
So they would be able to come back the first part of October, which basically the first 9 weeks of school is over.
And they can't even come back as a.
You can come back and work for free as long as they're on payroll.
Kind of, sort of. Really, they're not even supposed to volunteer their time. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Educational Retirement Board. But we do believe that 90-day clock after this summer will begin on their last day of work. That's the comment that ERB has shared with legislators, with PED, in terms of that intent, was they didn't believe that they could be ready for that this summer for active employees or current employees. So despite our best efforts of lobbying against that July 1 date, even asking for an emergency clause on that, weren't successful, but we do believe that the summer of 23, that will be able to take effect.
Thank you.
Kind of, sort of.
Data.
Mr. President, members of the board, I have 2 pieces of information for you. Continuing with enrollment reporting following our 120-day reporting period, which ended on March 1st. We're just waiting on the superintendent's signature and we'll be certified. And the first box of numbers, if you'll remember, it from previous reports, that is last school year's numbers at 40, 80, 120, and end of year. The box underneath it is this year's membership numbers with 40, 80, and 120. The boxes in green, those are the current ones. On the right-hand side, you have some comparisons. So if you look at enrollment from 80-day and 120-day compared to, it's an average of 80-day and 120-day. Compared to last year's average, this year's average, 98.51. That's an increase of almost 200 enrollment, 200 members. So that is definitely positive on the membership side as well. And then on the FTE membership, which counts the student units. So all of those are positive increases. And then if you look in the second box on the right-hand side, that's a comparison of 40-day to 40-day last year to this year, and then 120 to 120 last year to this year. So when I presented to you on our 40-day report, we were down 10 from the previous year. Now from last year's 120 to this year's, we're up 268. And there's a summary of that at the bottom of that report, but we're 268 is pretty good, and 181 members improvement in enrollment. And I will stand for questions on that one if anybody has any.
Trickling back in.
We have had an influx this reporting period. I know we've heard a lot in my office from secretaries and, and they're coming from everywhere, here, everywhere. So it's very encouraging that, we're getting kind of over the hump, I think. So.
President, members, one comment I'll make on that is, yes, we are encouraged to see the students continuing to return. In terms of staffing levels, preparation for that, we did not reduce our staffing moving forward into this school year. Kept our same staffing that we had, quite honestly, in the 1920 school year. So we believe that we have the capacity to continue to handle those students. We're currently staffed in terms of budget-wise to handle what we had in 1920 before COVID, which was 10,600 kids. So we currently have that staff. As we work through budget and see where the unit value comes in, that will help advise what that number becomes moving forward in the next.
They have given you that.
Oh, ma'am. Historically, we get it at spring budget workshop. We've been told we'll get it before that. That is April the 6th to the 8th.
I see that, Carrie. You can go up there and shake some trees and see what you can get.
I'm willing to, whatever it takes.
Mr. President, members of the board, one more report for you is on our attendance. And I do have some positive news to report on that as well. I've left the 40-day and 80-day attendance boxes on there, so you've already seen those. Down at the bottom is the 120-day attendance, and that very last column is a comparison of 120 to the 80-day. And so in this particular instance, you want negative numbers. That means that our chronic absenteeism rate has gone down in nearly every case at nearly every school. So that's actually pretty significant. I know those numbers don't look very big, those negative numbers. The biggest one I think is 4.2. No, actually, I take that back. Stone had the biggest dip, 6. Well, it's actually very difficult after you have reported a certain number of days. So at 40-day, what our chronic absentee rate is not going to change a whole lot, because those first 40 days still count, even into the 120 days. So it takes a lot of movement to be able to affect that in any significant way. So I'm extremely encouraged by even though they look like low numbers, those are still, a testament to our principals and teachers and parents and our attendance liaisons. They have all worked very hard to get kids to come to school every day as much as possible, in spite of when we have to quarantine or anything like that. So I was pleasantly surprised to see that in this quarter's report. And I'll stand for any questions on that one.
Just to see what those chronic percentages would be for COVID.
Right.
Any questions?
Under the alternate school. I don't have my glasses.
So they are actually counted in the Hobbs High School. Yes, sir.
Mr. President, members, I'll make a comment on that. It's good to see the green. We're headed in the right direction. And I think it communicates to your point, Mr. Easton, that the longer we're here, we're consistent. Students feel coming to school, parents feel sending them to school. The other comment I'll make is the Attendance for Success Act that was implemented 2 years ago changed the ballgame. So before, when you took your kid out of school and took them to the doctor's office, that was an excused absence. There are no longer excused absences. You're out of school, you're out of school. So that absence count, you're seeing both those numbers. To your point, I'm encouraged to see what that number is fall when we start with a fresh batch and a fresh percentage, as Ms. Bird shared.
If there are no more questions.
Mr. Strickland, what was the common sense reasoning? If you have one, or can you enlighten me of having no excuse absence?
Mr. President, Ms. Jones, I will take you up on the offer of no reasoning.
Okay.
I'll tell you the reason. Because they're looking at missing instruction. They're not looking at why you miss. They're just looking at what percentage of kids are missing instruction.
We don't want to go to school on Saturday. The doctor's office don't open on Saturday. You can't get a dentist appointment on Saturday.
Parents are gonna have to, kids are gonna have to. I wonder if they'll have anybody with perfect attendance.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
I'll take the bait. And I agree with you, Mrs.
Little
Appleton.
Gene would have had perfect attendance.
Because his mom didn't want him at home. Those are allowable, but they're not counted as excused absences. So they're a school activity. But in terms of taking the bait, I think it sends a message that the onus is 100% on the school district. And it's 100% about a number. It's not about taking the child as the child. It's not about taking the family as a family and recognizing and respecting that there are dynamics in play that, quite honestly, they're just not going to be at school. And that may be a good reason. I mean, I was at the junior college for 2 days and I saw parents that I know that had their kids, they're going through the museum. So while they're counted as absent today, they got an opportunity to enrich their life and provide themselves an education in that museum setting, even though it's counted as an unexcused absence or an absence. So to your point, Ms. Evelyn, 100% agree with you. I think the intent was to place the importance on instruction and being in front of a teacher during that period of time. I think what it did is it lost the human factor of really providing the opportunity and the support for that whole child.
You're still not gonna make me understand it. But anyway. So I'm on the side of the film. I'm at the unexcused part of it. No excuse absences is what I was getting at, because there are some necessary things that need to be excused. I'm not sure how.
That's in the family.
Yeah.
Unexcused.
Yeah, I mean, unexcused. Okay. Okay.
And middle school kids and.
Good point. Orthodontist point.
Yes.
We're ready to move on to operations.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, and Superintendent Strickland. A number of projects moving along. won't detail everything that is in the presentation, but give you a good broad overview. For our first project with our state partner, the SFA, a Southern Heights Elementary School replacement. The bidding and negotiating process is still going on. We did receive one quote or one proposal from Becker Parish Sabatini, oops, I'm sorry. Bradbury Stam Construction did have an evaluation committee meet and go through the formal evaluation so we can submit that to PSFA. We are asking the board to accept this one proposal so we can move forward and request some additional funds from the state PSEOC. Their quote was more than our budget, but it was within 5.5% of the architect's estimate, which is a good sign. We'll be doing that. The PSEOC cycle has changed now from a 4-week cycle to a 6-week cycle. So we've got to wait about 5 more weeks before we can go in front of them. Our PSFA representative is priming the state. She's getting the information together. Go forward with that. The good news for the project schedule, though, if we are granted the additional monies on April 26th, then we can get the contracts executed by mid-May. And with Bradbury's 386-day construction time, we'll be done by June 5th. We are on target for that project. Mills Elementary site improvements. Put that out to bid. We did receive 2 quotes from CES vendors. Again, we met, evaluation committee met and went through those. We do have a tabulation or a quote review sheet on the next page. But in summary, Lasco was our low quote, and J&H construction was significantly higher, about 37% higher. And Constructors Inc. declined because they were just busy. So we have prepared purchase orders and sent that off to Lasco. And maybe we'll have a pre-construction meeting in April. I did receive a phone call just before entering the meeting today. And there was another vendor that PSFA had received a call on that they were not allowed to submit a quote. So again, tomorrow morning, I'll find out more about that. But we may have some sort of protest on this job. On our security ward projects, all the door hardware replacements, the good news is the material did come in for stone. It should be completed with that project over spring break. The hardware will arrive, well, has partially arrived for Edison Coronado, and both of those should be done by the middle of April. Over the quote review. The Tidings Auditorium chiller replacement project. Did receive the construction documents from Honeywell on that. We'll start an owner design review on PSA website. We have prepared the POs and sent them to CES so that we can get the equipment ordered. About a 23-week lead time. A long time. However, during the process of getting the construction documents approved, we noted that, well, actually Honeywell noted that they needed an 11-foot by 11-foot overhead door on the west elevation of the 2nd story mechanical room, just to get the equipment in. There's several large boxcar sections that go into that room and get all lined up for this new air handler. Unfortunately, the engineer used the floor plan on the 1st floor to show the air handler, which is a much bigger room. So at this point, the air handler they specified doesn't fit into the mechanical room, so they're redesigning that. We'll get over that hurdle. We'll get the door there. We did retain, we haven't retained yet structural engineer, but we have them on notice. Kaiser Middle School study, contracts have been signed with Greer Stafford and uploaded to eBuilder. Create a commitment on that. And we did have a kickoff meeting last week. So in general, still about on the same time frame that I had mentioned before. Study should be done in July. And the ed specs will be done in late fall, early winter. That would give us enough time to procure a design professional to design the project. So that during 2023, it would be designed, get the contractor on board in 2024, and then move it in the summer of 2020. Other ongoing projects have our REC7 alteration. We did receive some drawings from the architect. We've sent them to technology. I've reviewed them and we've sent them comments back. That I don't have a firm schedule on that project, but they were going to get the plans done so we can construct it in the summer. Hopefully sometime in April, we'll put that out to bid. Will Rogers site improvement project that is under design right now. And we did submit for a DOT grant yesterday. And if that is accepted or awarded, then that would pay for about 75% of the funds on this. Cost of that project is estimated at just under $1 million. So it's a pretty good sized project. Other ongoing projects, we've got the DPS on the central kitchen freezer. They have submitted their preliminary drawings to us 2 weeks ago, and we reviewed them, sent them back. We did get a roofing core. We can give as much information to the designer as possible. And we're trying to crank that one out for summertime work as well. That is expected to be a CES award, hopefully to a local contractor. Highland Kitchen Edition. Again, this is kind of like REC7. It's with Brad Nesser. And they have again submitted some preliminary plans, which we reviewed, redlined, and sent them back. And it's to be done as soon as they can get the plans ready. College Lane site improvements. Like Will Rogers, we submitted a grant for that one. That is over $1 million project because of the side streets that we'd be constructing for the city. That one is proceeding in design. The district-wide outdoor learning classrooms, we've got the canopies procured by AK Sales, will be delivered near the end of April. Our shoulders is to get some more quotes for the concrete. The district-wide LED light fixture project is completed. Have made final payment, contractor, and the punch list is done. Mark one off. And on the central kitchen freezer and storage cooler issues, maintenance has ordered some pallet racks and mobile shelving so we can alleviate that overcrowding in the freezers. A couple of new projects mentioned before, the Tidings Auditorium Restroom Alterations is a project that is just going to be replacing finishes and fixtures. It won't need a permit. Did meet with the contractor and Mark out there, and there is a, there's some doors that they're going to be putting in storage areas up there, and while they're there, there's also on the west elevation of that second floor mezzanine. We need to break through that plaster soffit, part of the Tidings pillar replacement. So as part of this project, we're going to make that opening, but we're also proposing to now cover the opening with a removable panel that is covered with a sound absorbing acoustical panel. And what we're going to do is on 3 walls, provide acoustical panels to help reduce the reverberation of that space. The task for boys and JV basketball and girls PE locker room. Again, I've mentioned this was mostly replacing fixtures that got into the sewer line, which is going to require a permit, which is now going to require an architect. So MTSR will be available in March, so we haven't really started anything on this project. Other new projects are business office copy center. Our maintenance group did a wonderful job. They banged that thing out, got all the infrastructure and the wall in place. Piecework's being manufactured and the furniture's been ordered for that new office. So within a short order, that area will be finished. New room. The Tasker Arena exterior door replacement. This is a little project that's going to now change out all of the remaining old hollow metal doors on the exterior of Tasker. About 7 pair of doors. PO has been issued to CES, and we have notified PSFA of this project. So I had kind of mentioned we've been putting together a list of projects. I've included our list that we use with maintenance and in operations, just so you can see the volume and what we've done on the next page. Color code the list of projects so we don't get lost. There's about 3 pages of projects that we're currently working on. The grayed out text are projects that are now completed. This time we didn't have any completed last time I spoke. We have also then color coded so that we know what projects are encumbered, what's going to be our next top priority, and then a lower priority. That way everybody is on the same page as to what we're going to be working on. This just gives a little snapshot of completion dates, construction budgets, if PSA is involved, CES contract. There are other columns that would include more detailed information, but this is just a nice little snapshot of all the projects. But as you can see, we've got quite a number. I think there's a total of 50 projects that are color coded at the moment we're working on. That's where we're at today. Have any questions?
Very thorough, thank you. Any questions?
You're welcome.
Mr. President, one,
Finance is busy beating.
one comment I will make on the College Lane parking improvements. Through the legislative session, we had a couple of legislators designate what they call junior money to that project. And you may or may not be aware, but those monies were vetoed statewide. That $660,000 that was coming to the students of College Lane and the parents of College and Elementary was vetoed last week. We'll see. We'll see.
The board's had their packets since last week and had the opportunity to do all the information and business side. Great.
Mr. President, members of the board, for your consideration, we have the expenditures, the investments, 1 bid, and some bars.
Entertain a motion if there are no questions.
That's it.
Have a motion in a second. Expenditures, investments, bids, and bars. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries, thank you.
President, members of the board, I just kind of wanted to let you know of a change that we're going to be implementing currently. So what happens, teachers are on what we call 24/4 schedule, and that probably happens from back in the time when schools were starting later than they are currently. And so teachers would get paid, their first paycheck would be August 31st. They get paid 24 paychecks, and then in June, they would get 4 checks for June, 2 in July, and August 15th. Well, now that they're coming back earlier and earlier, we're going to start paying their first paycheck of their new contract on August 15th. Same number of checks. It's just so this year for June, they'll still get the 4 checks because we're paying out the contract. But beginning next with the 22-23 school year, their contract they'll get their first check August 15th. And then on June next year, they'll get 3, which will be the June and the 2 Julys. It'll just, because they're starting earlier and earlier, and that way.
Saying is on the 15th of August, they're all gonna be rich. 'Cause they're gonna get 2 checks.
No, they'll still, oh. Yes.
This year.
Correct.
I'm just saying, spend your money wisely if there are any teachers.
So we think this will be good rather than getting the 4 deferred checks in June and then having to wait till August 30th. This will just be, a little bit better, especially since they're starting back at the first part of August. So, and it'll help with, insurance because it's all in 1 month. So, I mean, there's various reasons. So that's what we would like to do.
I think that's a good point.
Mr. President, and I'll make a comment. This actually was a request of our ESAC committee. So as you'll remember, our ESAC is a representative of every campus. They brought this to us literally back in August, and,
Yes, sir.
Carrie put it down and said, we'll get back to that. And so couldn't do it then because we'd already begun contracts. But looking forward to this change. Definitely bring some August back to school relief to folks.
Good.
All right, budget highlights. Mr. President, members of the board. So our budget, as Mr. Strickland mentioned, the spring budget workshop is April 6th to the 8th. Our budget is due April 20th. Now, not a lot of time, obviously, week and a half if you're counting the days, which I am. So what we're doing, and we have no idea what the unit value is going to be at this point. Don't have a 910B5, all the things I need. However, with the short turnaround, we can't just wait. So we've put together what we call the Cadillac version. In other words, if it comes in where we're hoping, these are some of the things we would like to implement, and some of them are mandated. So just going to kind of hit some highlights for you. Again, noting we don't know what the unit value will be. So these are all contingent on that. So the first thing we're proposing is right now, if you look at our teacher salary schedule, there's multiple columns, and I won't pull it up unless you would like. I'll be glad to if you would, but basically it's bachelor's 15, bachelor's 45, master's 15, master's 45 for each level, levels 1, levels 2, levels 3. So that's 18, columns. What we would really like to do, especially considering that teachers are going to the 50, 60, 70 levels, minimums for level 1, level 2, level 3, is consolidate that. We're not sure until we get the money how exactly that's going to look. As close to a level 1, level 2, level 3 as we can get is what we would like to do, dependent upon money. Realizing that consolidate that. It used to be we got paid on what they call training and experience. So you got paid based on bachelor's 15, bachelor's. No longer. Now it's what they call teacher cost index, level 1, level 2, level 3. So we're just kind of doing that. No one, obviously, we're not going to shortchange anybody. We would be bringing everybody up. So it, depending on money, we'll get that as uniform as we can. So that's the thing. It would obviously exceed the minimum of 50, 60, 70. Obviously, that won't be a problem. We will keep within the mandate. And then we'll ensure that the average raise, the language did say average, so we will ensure that there's an average raise of at least 7%. So those masters 45, they don't have to worry that they're going to lose on the average of the 7% raise. So
What's going to happen? Going to kick them into a higher tax bracket.
It could be
All gonna
correct.
go down the sand. So what I'm gonna say is check your
Yes.
W-2. Can change your withholding.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I will
That's
keep.
my tax tip.
You heard it here first. So we'll definitely obviously keep you posted as soon as we get the numbers, but that's just so you know, that's what we're working toward. The cost to update the salary schedule is going to be over $5.1 million if we were just to move everybody to those 3 levels. So again, depending on funds, but so that's where we are. We're also ensuring that all employees will be paid the mandated minimum of $15 an hour. So that's bringing all salary schedules. So that for some people is quite a significant jump. When you take the number of hours, divide it by the days, you know, it could be a 22 up to almost a 30% increase to bring them to $15 an hour. That we anticipate is going to cost us $1.5 million. Estimated. Again, it's mandated, so we're hoping that they will fund that part of it. Hopefully. We also update the classified salary schedules, the ones that were already at $15, so they'll at least see the average of 7%. So that's in the language. So excluding the amounts I've already mentioned, that's looking at $1.8 million. So yes, it's gonna be interesting. One thing we would like to consider, depending on where the 910B5 and the unit value, what we would love to consider is increasing the portion that we pay for insurance. Currently, if you average it, it depends on what your income is, but the average is 64%. It could go anywhere from 60-40 if you make above 25,000 to 75-25. What we would love to do, if the money is there, is HMS pick up more portion of the employee part of that. So, but we can legally pay up to 80%, or statutorily, I would say. So it could be 80-20. I don't know that the money will be there to do that, but just so you know, that's the statutorily you can go up to that. So we'll see where the money comes in. Hopefully that is a wish list item. And then we're also budgeting for an increased ERB employer contribution of 2% to bring it to 17.15. I believe, I don't want to misspeak, but I believe the employee will not see an increase. It's all on us, the 2%. So currently we're paying 15.15 and it'll go up to 17.15. So those are just some budget highlights that we've already kind of started. So we have a scenario 1, if it comes in where we would really like it. And then we kind of have some contingencies if depending on.
Let's hope the scenario 1 works out.
We hope so. We really hope so. Currently, the unit value is $4,862 and some odd cents. So we don't know where it'll come in, but we do have some scenarios. So that's where we are.
Quarterly report.
Yes, and that's just for your information. And I did forget to mention that on the budget, I will be presenting that, of course, April 19th, since it's due April 20th. However, we are having a equity council meeting March 31st. So I would like to invite 2 of you if you would like to join that, just to hear if 2 of you would like. Okay, that's March 31st at 4 o'clock, I believe, right?
Sure you'll send me.
I will. I gotcha. Is there anyone else that would?
Anybody else want to go?
Rock, paper, scissors.
Check my calendar, but I think I
So Peggy and,
If you can't, I'll go.
okay, gotcha.
can alternate. Gary be our-
Something happens and I can't make it.
And it's just, you know, if you would like, so, all righty, thank you very much.
Hey, thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, members of the board, I have for your consideration this evening our school calendar for school year 22-23. There in your cover page, you do see some updates kind of capturing how that process played out. So a number of weeks ago, actually at the ESEC meeting in January, we were still in the middle of the legislative session, and we began having conversations with ESEC about how do we get better next year. In many ways, while we're having school we're simply having school. And we know to our core that students being in front of the teacher is the right thing. But we also know with the multiple interruptions, whether it be instructional staff, students present, different quarantines, different scenarios, we believe progress this year has been difficult. And instructional staff shared that we'd like to commit to getting better next year. Let's be purposeful with that time. So going forward, we did not elect to pursue extended learning time program. What we did is we took what that current contract is, 191 days, and built professional development inside that contract, not above it, like ELTP does now. ELTP requires that current contract of 191 days, currently have 188 instructional. Then staff have to find 80 hours of professional development above that. And I believe I shared with this board before, while I do believe there's some very beneficial videos on the internet, we did not have the luxury of it being purposeful district-wide to drive us forward with intention. So while we may have met that mark of 80 hours, we may not have gotten better collectively as a group. So put out to all staff with that mindset of how do we build professional development into that day, put out to staff and said, here's 3 different scenarios. Tell us where you're falling. And you can see there, we put out an option of 188 instructional days, 3 PD days equals 191 working days. That's our current schedule right now. That would have allowed us to continue ELTP, and we would have figured out that 80 days. You can see there, 24% of the staff favored that calendar idea, contract idea. 178 instructional days, which by reducing that number of instructional days, we would have added 50 minutes of instruction a week. That may have been 10 minutes a day. That may have been do away with PLC on Wednesday to get that 50 minutes back. Within that calendar, with that contract, we would have had 13 professional development days to get to the 191. 17% of the staff favored that option. The other option was 183 instructional days, 8 PD days equals 191 days, and 58.8% of the staff favored that option. So working from that idea, put together 5 different calendars that I shared with ESAC last week, be able to narrow that down. ESAC spent some time with that, and then they selected, each ESAC member selected their 2 favorite calendars out of 5 options. Just so happened that they were all named birds of prey. Happens to be that eagle is a bird of prey, so they got to pick from a condor, an osprey, a hawk, an eagle, and a falcon. Couldn't remember the 5th one. And so they selected their 2 favorite, and from those 2 favorite options, we eliminated the 2 bottom, and we're left with 3 options. Went through those and quickly took some feedback and said, are there any things that we want to flex, we want to do with before we put this out to vote. Put that out to vote on Tuesday morning last week to all staff. We changed the names on the calendars, and we went to 3 different types of eagles, from a bald eagle to a black eagle to a golden eagle. And as you can see there, the bald eagle was the favorite in terms of that calendar. And so you have in front of you 191 day staff contracts. 181 of those are teaching days. 2 of those are parent teacher conference days, and 8 PD days. And those PD days will be scheduled and structured in a sense that we're intentional with our development as a district throughout next year. We also want to be able to provide some teacher planning time within those days. I will make a comment before you do vote on that. Spring break, while it's in there, I think the group liked where spring break fell. It's at the end of the third 9 weeks. But if you remember, we work in concert with the number of school districts in our county, as well as the institutes of higher ed here. So that may flex one week or the other. But we'll see where that lands. But it is nice that it currently sits at the end of the third 9 weeks. Have come back with a professional development day, planning day, that day coming back for the fourth 9 weeks. That I would stand for questions.
I was in Lubbock this weekend. I guess Texas is on spring break.
Hmm.
You couldn't fit any New Mexico people over there. That place was worse than Christmas. No matter where you.
That's right. I won't go next year. I love it.
Go there spring break either. Questions regarding the
I see you were managed to eke out that Thanksgiving week.
President, Miss Appleton, Bald Eagle was the only calendar option that had Thanksgiving at a full week.
Okay.
It was a unique calendar this year in that where Christmas falls on a Sunday. So in order to get those instructional days sort of balanced in each semester, you end up with some funkiness there that I think historically, in quotes, we've been able to have 2 full weeks. And I know most recently, we've not had a midweek dismissal.
But it has happened.
If there are no other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Duration of 2022-2023 calendar. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Announcements.
Mr. President, members of the board, announcements. We will begin spring break. It says March 21st.
Sorry.
I think everyone, oh, it's right. I think everyone believes it starts on Friday. But technically in our calendar, in Terry, you're exactly right. It's spot on. I think everyone's looking forward to Friday. Having some time to rest and recharge and relax and come back for April and May. It will be a busy 2 months. Reminder that the Region 6 board meeting is in Jal on Monday night when we return from spring break, 5:30 to 8:30. And
There's an agenda in front of each of these.
perfect. Yep.
What time is our driver leaving?
He's not going to be here.
Appleton, I will be in San Diego attending a Carnegie Learning Institute with Maddox Foundation on Monday and Tuesday. So we have a vehicle scheduled for you and would absolutely tell us what time you want to meet and we'll have it fueled up and ready to go.
We're here at 5, we'll get there.
On schedule.
With me driving.
It's only 40 minutes.
Right.
You can leave at
Oh,
4:30.
5:30. Okay. Never mind. Oh, yeah, that's great.
Take
We'll
30
figure
minutes.
something out.
Okay, and then we'll make sure and accommodate you with the vehicle and
Well, San Diego, eh? Cal, San Diego.
I will regret not attending the regional board meeting. In addition to that, Good Friday is on April the 15th and our regular board meeting will be April the 19th.
Very good. Any other comments? It is
7:30.
7:33.
Vámonos. Second.
Have a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Before you leave, would you,